here on this wonderful Thursday. As always, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only, the NASCAR guru himself, Sean Engel, who you can find on X at SeanE247. And I am Fantasy Bosco, a.k.a. Rich Maletto. You can find me on Twitter at Fantasy Bosco. Sean, we're going road racing, man. It's a holiday weekend. We've got two racing series this week. No trucks, just Xfinity and Cup. Hopefully we get an Xfinity race this year, because I don't know if I could consider last year's event much of a race. I don't know about you.
Well, it was just a real wet race out there in Xfinity last year, and that's really what you can say about that. And especially because it ended up just being a pure dominance fest by Cole Custer. I want to say he led every lap, or almost every lap.
No, I double-checked. There was only 25 laps to the event. Cole Custer led every lap. I'm actually in the middle of the overview article, and I have that number section, The Xfinity data is useless. Like, I didn't cut it out, but in all seriousness, I mean, I've got the section with percent of laps led and everything. There's one name, Cole Custer, 100%. As far as drivers that had laps in the top 15, for example, that's another stat we like to kind of look at, kind of gives us an idea of who's typically running up front. Sean, I am not joking when I said 9 drivers were in the top 15 for 100% of the race.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, in the Xfinity race, there was only just some movement in the middle or later parts of the pack, but not much movement at the front because everybody was just gone.
And that plays to the fact, look, there's no elevation changes. There's not a ton of passing zones. Where there are passing zones, it's the heavy braking in. And if you miss, we saw tons of cars losing the ass into the vehicle and sliding in. I can't remember what turn that was. That one where Jeff Burton was like in the middle and could see cars on both directions or whatever. That seemed to be a hot spot. Look, they think it's cool to race cars in the skyline. That's what this is. This race is more about form over function, right? It's not meant to. I said this the other day. If we're going to go racing in the streets of Chicago, let's fire up some cabbies and let's go. This is fluff. This is, hey, look, we're in Chicago. Hey, look, it's cool. We've heard the other drivers talk about, let's go back to Chicagoland. Honestly, with this car, as much as I've dogged on it, it's been great at these intermediates. Let's go back to Chicagoland. I've got to believe, like Kansas, like some of the other 1.5 miles we've been to, Chicagoland would put on a fantastic show.
Oh, I'd love for them to go back to Chicagoland. I know they were trying to do the Chicago street course just to more so demonstrate the fact that they could take this car anywhere and just put on a competitive race. And they did that with an example of the street race. And, of course, when they were also doing 24 hours of Le Mans over there, too.
Right.
Garage 56.
We got that with the Le Mans, right? I guess I don't need it here because, quite frankly, I don't think with the new car, the road racing in general has been better. We've been doing more road racing, and I would argue I like the road racing with the old car much better than the road racing with this car. But, hey, we're not the ones cutting the checks at NASCAR. We're not the ones pulling the strings. All we are is a couple of talking heads, right, that watch a lot. And I stand by our takes. I stand by our views. We've watched enough. We've been fans for a long time, but it is what it is. Hey, if you do like our content, I was a little slow on bearing the lead because we do have a bit of a condensed show this week. My apologies, but there's a lot going on. Happy 4th of July to everybody. But, hey, you can still get all our NASCAR content, plus NHL and NBA, which I get is over, but it'll cover you for all of next year because it's 12 months rolling, right? $39.99, $40 gets you everything but football and baseball. And I believe if you sign up for the baseball package, I think this is included still. I could be wrong. You should probably double check that. But quite frankly, just go to the subscribe button at fantasyguru.com. And there's an option for you. I can almost guarantee it. If you just want football, there's football. If you just want baseball, there's baseball. If you just want the NASCAR and the racing stuff, hey, $40 gets you a year. Please check it out. Feel free to give us a like and a thumbs up and a subscribe on the YouTube channel, supporting the RaceGuru Thunder Hour that Sean and I take a lot of pride in. We got more coming over there on that channel, as far as I understand, so looking forward to that. But, hey, this podcast is brought to you by fantasyguru.com and the Elite Plus Network. Show us your support. Head over to the subscribe button at fantasyguru.com. let's at least cover the elephant in the room regarding the Cup race at the end of last week's event, okay?
Oh, yeah, that wild mess right there.
We'll take 2 minutes here, okay? Say what you want. Hate yellow finishes. Someone said, I'll stand by. We got to do green, white checkers till the end. I just want to remind folks, Dale Earnhardt Sr. doesn't have a Daytona 500 win if we don't end under caution. I'm just reminding folks of that. I have no problem ending under caution. Maybe it's because I'm old and races used to be that way. But I got to tell you, Sean, I don't appreciate tearing up that many race cars. And from a betting and DFS standpoint, it was a real killer because while we were really looking good and things were kind of falling in line how we expected and thought, it all went out the window because of fuel mileage, because of restarts. I mean, we had a record number of restarts, 31 additional laps. I can't sign up for that, Sean.
It was just wild, chaotic. We saw wrecks because drivers were trying to get all that they can get out there, and then fuel mileage was a big concern. It always feels like whenever fuel mileage just goes into a factor at the end of these races, anything can happen, and it starts really becoming wild and chaotic overall, Rich.
Well, you got cars running out of fuel, right? And so now you end up with a jam up. Not to mention, we already know the restarts at the end of these races gets crazy as it is because everybody's trying to get that 1, 2, 3 positions they can. Plus, you never know. You could move up 3, 4 spots in turn one, have another caution. Now, all of a sudden, you're in line to be in the top 4 spots coming to the next restart. I find it gimmicky, Sean. I don't think it's real racing, but it is what it is. This is NASCAR's policy. I can't support it. But we don't get a choice. I'm not going to fault anyone that wants to see it. I get fans want to see mayhem and want to see wrecks. I don't, but it is what it is.
I thought it was chaotic, and from a racing standpoint, not exactly the best product out there. But from an entertainment standpoint, it sure was interesting to keep my eyes glued on to see at the very end that Joey Logano just took the victory right there. His first win of 2024, he punches his way into the playoffs. He had to hold off Tyler Reddick, who was charging hard. But let's not also forget, who finished second? Zane Smith. Where did Zane Smith come from?
Right?
I don't know.
Well, fuel mileage. And honestly, Joey and Brad, it's a shame Brad wrecked because I would have loved to have seen how the fuel mileage worked out with Brad because over the last 10 years, Joey and Brad have had an incredible knack for finding some extra fuel that doesn't seem to exist. I don't know if it's like Days of Thunder with an extra big fuel line or something, or just how they save fuel, with corner entry, under caution, what have you. But that's a perfect example. If you saw the interview with Tyler Reddick, he felt like they cheaped their way into a top 5. He was very disappointed overall with the run. For somebody that finished third, he was basically like, yeah, this stinks. They're missing speed and it's apparent. And I thought he summed it up best. All the good cars got kind of wrecked out or ran out of fuel. This was not indicative of what the race was. So enough about that event. Let's hit some of the, because like you said, we do have a short time period here. So let's hit the news and notes. Why don't you highlight some of your favorites, Sean? Because there's some good ones this week.
So overall, when it comes to the news, let's just also put this in perspective. There were 13 drivers that actually wrecked out of this Cup race this past weekend. One of them, and this is just a segue into this first story here, was Josh Berry. He got caught up. He was the last driver that ended up getting wrecked out of the race. But you know what? Maybe he might be feeling a little bit better because now he has a ride for next year. It's official. He's joining Wood Brothers Racing to drive the number 21 Ford in 2025 there, Rich. What do you first reaction to this?
Not shocked. You and I kind of predicted this or suggested that this was where everything was trending. My problem, if I'm the Wood Brothers, there should have been a bigger priority to bring Rodney Childers in. It sounds like that's not necessarily a priority. It sounds like that's not necessarily off the table. But I got to tell you, if I'm the Wood Brothers, you screwed up because somebody who didn't have Rodney Childers on their team, maybe an RCR car. If I'm Richard Childress, I tell you what, I would be chasing down Mr. Rodney Childers. Maybe it's Hendrick. Maybe it's Gibbs. Maybe it's front row. Somebody is going to get a top-notch crew chief, and shame on Wood Brothers for not making it a priority.
Well, I do have some additional notes I did want to share. I put threw this into our little rundown sheet that we put together for the show every week. But Barry's 2025 crew chief is not confirmed, and they never said who it was during the announcement over at Wood Brothers Racing. John Wood, who's now the president and leader of Wood Brothers Racing, he confirmed that they wanted to sign Barry first and then figure out the crew chief later. So they're still in the process of figuring out who's going to be the crew chief of that number 21 car next year. Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports, he was saying that it's not expected to be Rodney Childers and somebody to come out of the Penske group. Maybe it could be somebody like Jeremy Bolins, but they still don't have any clear indication. So, never say never, but maybe in the future, maybe they might change their mind and still pick up Rodney Childers, because he hasn't even stated where he's going or if he's even going to continue crew chiefing past this year.
Now, that's a great point. Is he going to still do it? I'll say this much. If he decides to continue to crew chief or even take on a different role, competition director or something like that, wherever he lands, it's worth noting, okay? Rodney's background is racing, and it's a lot like some of these other really successful crew chiefs. They're decent racers. They're better crew chiefs, right? So I'm going to take note wherever Rodney ends up. I don't care what role it is, but wherever he ends up, in my opinion, especially if he goes to, say, a Colleague, Aspire, one of these kind of underperforming or up-and-coming teams, Rick Ware, something like that, it's going to be worth noting and something to kind of focus on as we head into next year and things we're trying to predict of where we're going to see some improvements.
Yeah, exactly. But we still don't know. Maybe they might change their mind and still pick them up at Wood Brothers anyway. We don't know for sure.
I would love to see him and Barry stick together. I would. I really wanted to see this develop. So
it sounds like overall they're not, but we don't know. We just don't know for sure.
Stranger things have happened, but I'm with Pockrass. I'm going to put it at 80% likely it's somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's pretty valid right there.
Some big news. Hey, is Hailie Deegan done in Xfinity, Sean? Is that where we're at right now? That's the latest report I read. Is somebody said, "Look, stick a fork in her Xfinity career is done."
Yeah, especially, and this is something pretty telling that I saw today on X, social media, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. She no longer has AM Racing listed within her bio on there, and she unfollowed them. So that right there is kind of telling. We haven't gotten any official announcements, but I found this and what Joey Logano was saying when he was on the Dale Jr. download this week, talking about this ride, to be kind of a little bit telling and interesting, because Joey, when he was on Dale Jr.'s show, he was talking about how he got the call in order to even go into AM Racing and to be in that number 15 Ford in the Xfinity Series this week. He said they were saying that they called him and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we have an open seat."
Well, this is good for Joey because, frankly, I feel like it's not that he's lacking confidence. I don't think he really has that in him. You know what I mean? Like, he knows when things are down. He as much as I don't like Joey at times, he is a very smart driver. He is a student of the game. He is an aggressive driver. He knows what it takes to win. This extra seat time, he hasn't really had the ability to hop in trucks or Xfinity rides like we've seen some of the Hendrick guys do from time to time, whether it's been Byron or Larson or whoever. Giving Joey some extra seat time at this road course is only going to help him, right?
Yep.
Penske, you and I have talked about this off air. Penske doesn't have an Xfinity program like Gibbs does. Gibbs has its own. Hendrick has something worked out with, Spire and Trucks or JRM. They have kind of their own pseudo Xfinity series. But my point being is they have an outlet for these guys to either bring up young talent or let some of these vets kind of go back to the fundamentals, knock off some rust, that sort of thing. Look, Joey's going to outperform what AM Racing's been doing. Like, I'm going to be very curious to see where this car finishes relative to where we've seen it finish, right? I've always wanted Hailie Deegan to do well, but I think she's out of her league, Sean. Let's see what Joey does in this. It's only going to help him.
Yeah, and I think Joey Logano, when he was also on Dale Jr. Down Low talking about this, he did bring up some other interesting tidbits too in regards to the ride itself. He was saying that other than Penske giving him the seat, basically like the seat dimensions, he said that car is pretty much going to be prepped up completely by AM Racing. There's going to be no Team Penske support behind it, so that's very interesting. Very interesting to note because also we saw when AM Racing announced this move to remove Hailie Deegan from the seat this week, they were saying they wanted to see where their program was at, where their equipment was at overall, and they felt that having a two-time Cup Series champion would basically help them assess where they're at. It also is a little bit of a competitive mood too, because in the Xfinity Series owners points, AM Racing is about a position or two away from being outside the top 35. And then if they get outside of that mark, they're not even guaranteed to make races at that point. So
no, that's a problem. And I support any of these teams bringing in. We've seen multiple teams do it. You bring in former Cup champions, current Cup champions, etc., Cup level. They can at least tell you, hey, you are missing speed here. We do not have enough raw speed going into corner entry. We're not rolling. Whatever it is. So, look, we saw Mark Martin do it at multiple teams at the cup level, right? Everywhere he went, he made everybody better. We did have some interesting news. Carson Hocevar got penalized for doing his little hook and ladder move. We referenced the comments by Harrison Burton previously and how upset he was. Carson kind of deserved it, man. I mean, I don't know another way to do it. We've never seen anyone wreck folks under yellow and not get penalized. Denny Hamlin called for it. It is what it is. Apparently, Carson's not making friends in the garage.
He is definitely not.
Just a little tidbit from watching the sport a long time. You can ask guys like Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, some of the other ones, Ross Chastain. Making enemies in that garage area will not bode well for you.
It's true. And there's also past precedent set for this exact kind of penalty where you're wrecking somebody under yellow or spinning somebody out. We saw that with William Byron a year or two ago when he spun Hamlin out under caution. So it's the same exact kind of penalty here for Carson Hocevar. 25 driver points and fined $50,000, violated Section 4.4B of NASCAR's Member Code of Conduct policy right there. So there you go.
Yep. A couple of other penalties, nothing that was significant in my opinion. Sean, if you want to cover them, feel free.
Yeah, basically the only other penalties, there was none in the Xfinity Series race, so shocker that it got out clean there. Usually we see at least one, but we got 2 Truck Series penalties, the number 42 Nice Motorsports Chevrolet driven by Matt Mills and the number 88 team driven by Matt Crafton there. Both of those teams were found each with 1 unsecured lug nut. So as a result, the 2 crew chiefs on those teams were each fined $2,500 there.
Like I said, these lug nut ones, here was the deal. If you didn't get them on and things happened, that was on you. I still kind of feel that way. No, I don't want to see drivers hurt. But any team that's willing to put their driver in harm's way, the driver should leave the team anyway. And people on that team should be fired. So do think this is big news. Connor Zilic to run Xfinity Series sounds like potentially full-time with Junior Motorsports in 2025. He's a young driver, man. He's only 17. So this will be interesting to come up. Now the question becomes, who's out at Junior Motorsports?
Now, you see, Rich, if you were asked me this question maybe about 2 hours ago, I would have actually told you an entirely different answer than the answer that I'm actually coming up on now, because I just heard something very recently and very interesting that actually changes the answer to this question. Because originally, I thought maybe it might have been potentially Brandon Jones leaving the team.
Same. But I thought he had a multi-year contract both with sponsor and team.
Well, as far as his driver contract is concerned, I believe actually it is up after this year.
Okay.
For Brandon.
Okay. I thought he re-signed a multi-year deal when he got the sponsorship.
But what I did hear, though, that is my new answer, and this one could surprise you, Sam Mayer.
I'm not shocked. That was where I was going with this. I'm not shocked because you've heard me praise Sam Mayer here for quite a while. In the overview article, I highlight him and Cole Custer as really the only two Xfinity drivers as potential winners. I said Chase top 5, top 3, probably a better bet. But I'm not shocked by this. Sam Mayer deserves to be in the conversations with the Corey Himes and some of these other drivers we talked about getting looks. And Sam has said this himself. Now, my question to you, Sean, have you heard about a particular team in Cup for Sam then?
Yes, I actually have, and this is why I'm bringing this up. Apparently, now he's in the running as one of the potential front runners to get one of the front row motorsports seats.
Oh, Chevy going to lose its young man. I don't know how Chevy feels about that. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing now, and this came out not too long ago before we recorded the show.
So, do we have two available? Like, is it possible to see Noah Gragson and Sam Mayer over there at front row?
It is possible because we still have 2 open seats where the drivers aren't named yet. Remember, front row, they're going to have 3 seats next year. One is taken up by Todd Gilliland.
Right.
They've replaced the 34 because McDowell is leaving, and then they're getting one of those charters, which we assume is from Stuart Haas. So that's going to be the third.
I tell you what, Mayer and Gragson, while I don't love how both are youthful, young, and inexperienced for Cup, especially with someone like Gillen, I would love to see a Mayer Gragson with, like, say, a Truex, right? Or, well, Truex would be gone, but a Logano, some older vet, right? But I got to tell you, personality and driver-wise, Gragson and Mayer, look, they both came from JRM. Junior kind of found both of them.
Former teammates.
They were teammates. Like, this could work well for them. Like I said, nothing against Todd Gilliland. Look, he does have his dad to lean on, so there is some veteran experience, knowledge within the building, so to speak. As fast as front row has been overall, this is kind of fun. I could dig it, man.
Oh, yeah. It's a very interesting move, especially because we have to remember, front row is a Tier 1 Ford team now. They got that partnership going with Team Penske, too, so they're not exactly the same team that we've come to know. They're going to be even better.
Silly season is still being silly season. What can I say?
Yeah, I would sip to that too if I had a drink right next to me as well, Rich.
Little coffee, man. Do we want to hit paint schemes? I know we got some overlap. Do we want to call out a couple of them anyway?
Yeah, let's go ahead and quickly go through some of the paint schemes. You picked a bunch of this week there, Rich, and I do agree with a bunch of your choices. So let's start hitting some of yours first.
I tell you what, I don't think we can talk about a race at Chicago and not talk about Tyler Reddick, or Michael McDowell for that matter. But I love this Tyler Reddick. It's a little busy for me, but dude, yes. I mean, it's Jordan from the 80s on the hood of the car and on the side. Like, I can't. And if anyone hasn't checked out the movie Air on Prime, if you have Prime, it's free. Highly recommend it. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck were great in it. Not much of a Jordan story, more of a story on his shoes and his mom, but highly recommend it. I just love this Jordan paint scheme, man. It's very fitting for
I'm a big fan of this one too. I love the whole color gradient all throughout the car, just going there, man. And the logo on the hood, very, very nice to look at. I know Tyler Reddick, he ran a pretty similar scheme towards this one last year, but this one's a little bit different. I like last year's scheme as well, but this one is also just really nice to look at. Love it.
I'm with you.
So you mentioned about another paint scheme there. Let's throw that one up here. We got Michael McDowell in a Chicago White Sox paint scheme here with Skill. So we got ourselves another little sports crossover here, Rich. MLB team with NASCAR here. We don't always see that, but you know the crazy thing is we've seen now 2 baseball-based paint schemes within the past couple weeks. So
both
there
Sox.
You go.
The White Sox and the Red Sox. I love when teams do this. I wish more did, to be honest. I think the paint schemes they come out with are fantastic. They're usually very clean and not overly busy. I'm not a big White Sox fan, but this is running kind of the south side of Chicago, right? Or heart of Chicago. So hat tip for finding the sponsorship and putting it on this car. And honestly, McDowell could be a contender this weekend.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more about that pretty soon, as it is. But I always really do like black cars, and especially with white numbers. I mean, that's a combination that will never get old to me. So I like this paint scheme a lot here too, Rich. So
Yep,
you
I'm with
named a
you.
few others on your list. Let's get to those. Which one should we hit next?
Oh, let's throw up Chastain.
Yes, this one I'm a fan of too. A very big fan.
Not a fan of the product. I'm not going to lie. Busch Light Peaches doesn't really ring my bell, but it's a sweet looking car.
For sure. I like the little orangey peachy color there. They
Yeah.
put the little fruit on the car. The Busch Light logo looks fantastic on the side. The number placement looks awesome with this. I mean, it just gels. It oozes absolutely awesome paint scheme.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
And also orange paint scheme too, so
Well,
it fits the Rich Maletto criteria.
Right. Orange is tough to get away from. Look, they did some great jobs with some of the other ones. I know you like Bubba Wallace. There is a ton of talk about his paint scheme this weekend.
Ah, yes, the Bubba Wallace paint scheme there. This one, we've got to talk about this one because the sponsorship and the crossovers here is something that I didn't think was ever going to happen or be possible. But we have an Japanese anime-based paint scheme here with McDonald's as well for the anime Jujutsu Kaisen. So this is a really, really cool looking paint scheme, and just the imagery on it, the red, the yellow, the black. Oh, it's such a cool combination of colors there too. And you have one of the characters from the series on the side there too, Rich.
Yes. I'm not into that stuff, but it's a cool looking car. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It's crazy there, Rich. We really do not see a lot of schemes based on Japanese anime series. But in fact, I tried looking this up. There's only been like one prior instance in the Cup series. You have to go all the way back towards 2003 when Jeff Green ran a Cheerios paint scheme with Yu-Gi-Oh! On it, too.
No, but I mean, we've seen cartoons for years and years. We had the Hanna Brothers cars every couple of years or a couple of times a year. Look, you got to get sponsorship where you can get sponsorship, Sean. That's just the way it is.
That's true. But, I never thought I'd see a paint scheme like this, and it looks really, really cool. Two other paint schemes we got here for today. You mentioned about Noah Gregson's Winchester Bass Pro paint scheme. This actually is a paint scheme he's now used a few times this year. It's coming back for one more time this week at Chicago. This is it actually pictured from last weekend's race at Nashville where he ran this exact paint scheme. He's running it one more time. It's still a cool looking paint scheme as it is. So nice. We had to see it now thrice now this week.
That's right.
And then you mentioned Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s paint scheme here. We have the Colgate Mariano scheme.
See, I couldn't see the hood earlier. I don't know if I like that hood, man. That is really kind of goofy looking. The side of the car looks great.
I agree. The side of the car absolutely looks fantastic with the Colgate logo and how the space is allocated and the sparkles from the logo leading to one of their products on the side. And just the white and red overall, it flows very nicely. So looks great too.
I'm with you. Be interesting to see on the track. Well, see on the track, it's not really a track this week. We have now twice shut down the city of Chicago, which blows my mind because I've been to Chicago a few times, and driving around Chicago, it's busy, it's packed, it's a pain in the butt. I absolutely despise it, and they're shutting it down. So I can only imagine how people who hate racing and hate NASCAR probably feel right now. And even those that love racing and NASCAR are probably frustrated. But we are on the streets of Chicago, Sean. The actual streets, potholes and all, racing.
Yeah, racing through tight corners and corridors. And, we have lots of tire barriers up. Well, if this race shouldn't be impacted by rain this year. So we'll get to really actually see what this track is made of now. So,
and you know what my fear is? Last year's racing in the rain was going to be a better show than what we're going to get this year. That's my fear.
Well, we'll have to, only one way to find out, I guess you could say.
We'll watch this weekend and see, right? I mean, that's all there is. So let's cover some of our drivers. We don't have as much overlap this week, and that's probably because we don't have really any history to go off of. To your point, it's going to be a totally different racing surface just because of the lack of rain, or potentially a lack, because last weekend, darkness, rain, like it was gloomy and wet the whole weekend, like the whole weekend. So, and they're not calling for that this weekend at all. In fact, the percentage of chance to rain's like down in the 20%, so far, far less. Look, we can't bury the elephant in the room. SVG, the guy had never raced a Cup car, comes in last year, wins the race. He's got a ride again this year. I mean, how do we not? In fact, Vegas is all about him too. I mean, I'm surprised it's not even shorter odds, but Vegas still has him as one of the favorites for both races.
Yeah, it's true, especially the Xfinity race where he's going to have even better equipment than what we're expecting in Cup this week. Now, that's something about SVG. We both like him a lot this week. He won this exact race 1 year ago, but 1 year ago, he was also in Trackhouse-based equipment. Now this year, he's in a Kaulig car, so I don't think the equipment is as high. I still like him a lot overall this week. I still think for DFS purposes, we're going to have him in some lineups just because of the experience. And this is his domain overall. So there you go.
The one thing I will say about Kaulig speed, at least the last road race, AJ Dinger did show some of that Kaulig speed again on the road course. And they hadn't really all year to that point. So, and Dinger showed some speed last weekend. He really did. So the speed seems to be coming back to that Kaulig team. So just something I want to point out there, but I'm with you. Honestly, the driver, and it's more the story, it's more the attitude of last week. The driver that I really like, and I know it's not one of your favorites this week, Tyler Reddick. Chicago paint scheme, Jordan, hometown Jordan, Jordan crowd. Reddick's history on the road courses the last couple of years in this car, the fact that they're pissed off and frustrated. I kind of like Reddick.
Yeah. You know what? I don't mind Reddick as an option potentially as well, just because he actually ran pretty solidly in this race last year until he basically got into the tires. He had a pretty good looking car. He was competitive, running in the top 10 and even at the top 5 at some points. He's one that I think we're going to have to watch, especially because of how good he is at the road courses. I will say this. If you're good at the road courses anyway, I think you do have an edge, and I think that's going to come into play. Even though this isn't exactly a one-to-one road course that we're used to seeing, like compared to, say, the Sonomas, the Codas, the Watkins Glens, I still think that having just a lot of positive experience on road courses is just going to indicate that you can still be competitive this week. And that also factors into some of the drivers that I'm picking this week, such as in the top price tier, I have Christopher Bell and Chase Elliott. Christopher Bell, he won a race at the road course earlier this year at Coda, so we cannot forget that. He's been pretty strong at road courses lately. And then Chase Elliott, well, I mean, Chase Elliott, he finished third in this exact race 1 year ago. We know how great he is at road courses, tends to really finish inside the top 10 more often than not at road courses. And for the price point, I definitely like Elliott a lot this week on both sites.
That's fair. And I like a little bit of Larson. He's been better on road courses overall. When he's run the Saturday and Sunday races on these road courses, he's been tough, especially on Saturdays. Just a little side note, little better odds on Larson than you get SVG for Saturday's event. But I'm with you on all those. Bell was on my radar. Elliott was on my radar. We're both on SVG. Reddick and Larson, I really, all 5 of those drivers deserve a nod, right? So I don't really have a complaint going one way or the other as far as that's concerned. In our mid-tier price guys, and we got a little bit of overlap there too. Not a shocker. I like Ty Gibbs, man. I mean, he's been good on the road courses overall. He was good here last year. When I started going through the data, his name kept coming up. So it's hard for me to get away from Ty Gibbs. I know he wasn't necessarily one of your first ones to take a look at, but I just can't shake Ty Gibbs this weekend.
I don't blame you, because Gibbs ran solidly in this race 1 year ago, and he's been actually not too bad when it comes to road courses overall. He's been finishing in towards that top 15, top 10 range sort of a lot in the more recent road course events in the Cup Series. But I know another point that makes me also put him, he kind of was like one of those drivers that was just outside, say, the top 3. Like if it was expanded to like 5 drivers we were picking for each tier, then Gibbs would definitely make it that way. But another thing I do like about Gibbs also, and just like a couple other drivers, there's about 5 or 6 drivers that are doing this. He's pulling double duty in racing Xfinity as well.
Yep. And that always
matters
that's
to important.
me. I do too,
especially this week.
Especially since he's in JGR equipment, right? Like for me, that overlaps a bit more. John Hunter Nemechek's doing something similar, right? But I'm not as gung-ho there. We have a lot of double duty. I mean, there's a lot of double dipping this week with the Xfinity race. We both like Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell was fantastic here last year. He's been a fantastic road racer. Again, I kind of like stories supporting the Chicago White Sox on his car. I won't be shocked to see a top 5 out of McDowell. We know, if anything, he's going to be running top 5 and then wreck it because he's insistent that he's got to get a win, right? He's trying to earn a job for next year. And we both were on, Chris Buescher, who you talked about the last time we went road racing. The guy just finishes in the top 5.
Not just the top 5, he finishes usually 11th or better at road courses, and it's almost like a guarantee. Like, if you're going to put any sort of bets down, and you can listen to this, if you find any positive odds bet on Chris Buescher to finish in the top 10, do it. Absolutely do it, because he's been nailing it no matter what road course the Cup Series visits. He just finds his way into the top 10, and if not, he's usually very, very close. He finished 10th in this race 1 year ago. That driver, the 17, he knows how to score results no matter what sort of road racing the Cup Series does, and we got to consider him, especially because the price on both sites is not outrageous either. He's actually a fairly friendly price on both sites if you wanted to get them in DFS.
And honestly, 2 drivers that I think are underpriced for what they are, Martin Truex and Kyle Busch. We may not look at them as necessarily great road racers, but if you look at their career road racing record, especially Truex, they've been good. They're very talented on these road courses. And look, Kyle Busch at 7,700, you'll never convince me that's not. I don't care if it's RCR equipment that's struggling. 7,700 is way underpriced for a Kyle Busch level driver. And I think Truex is underpriced as well. And I know you really like Truex on FanDuel.
Yeah, the price difference, especially on FanDuel, is where I really want to point out where you should use Truex, because he's only a flat $9K there. That's below average salary compared to DraftKings, where he is above average salary at $9,200. I mean, that's a very crazy difference overall there, Rich. You got to really use him there.
I think part of it's because Truex struggled last year. That's the thing. For our sleepers and bargains, look, we're both on Joey Hand, RFK equipment, RFK, Buescher, Brad, and Joey Hand's a road racer. So to Sean's earlier point, that's going to matter. He's also, this isn't a Boris said that's well past his prime.
No.
We're talking about youthful talent here. And Joey Hand could be fighting for kind of like what SVG did, fight for an opportunity for more races. So that's something to watch on the RFK team. I still like, anytime we go road racing, I'm going to give a shout out to Kaz Grala. His pricing is always so cheap. He's always one of the bottom 3 or 4. Look, even if he qualifies inside the top 20, top 15, he's going to try to run there. He is capable of top 15 finishes. So I'm going to be on Kaz Grala regardless. And I'm a little torn on Nemechek. Sean prefers Hailie. I don't disagree. As I dug into last year's races, I kind of gravitated more and more to Hailie, which came after I kind of put my notes on here. My thought for John Hunter Nemechek, he keeps surprising us with some decent finishes here and there. The team's getting better. The soccer club has been getting better on speed. John Hunter is going to double dip on Saturday. He's cheap. That's really what it comes down to for me. He's cheap.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind John Hunter. He's what, when it comes to sort of like you think of DFS plays overall, he's under 6K on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is also one of the cheaper drivers overall there. He's only a 3K on FanDuel right there. I think considering that he's a driver that I think the talent outweighs the equipment for sure there. I mean, Legacy's still figuring out speed, but I think this is one of those tracks where speed might not come into play as much as other weeks. And in that case, that could help John Hunter be a pretty decent play to consider over there. He's not my favorite driver to roster under 6K, but he's certainly in the conversation as one of the better ones, I'm thinking.
Yeah, and Hailie, really, the price point for me is Hailie's finally priced appropriately. You know what I mean? Like, he's finally at the price point where if you were like $500 less, you're an automatic, you know? So that's kind of interesting. Look, for the betting, you and I overlapped all over the place. Shane Van Gisbergen, plus 425, just over 4-1. Christopher Bell, 6-1. Kyle Larson, 6.5-1. Michael McDowell, 12-1. And both, we love Joey Hand as a long shot at 90-1. Throw a buck on it. Worst things have happened. If nothing else, I might even bet him a top 5 because I do think that could hit. Even a top 10. If you can find a top 10, it's probably going to be plus money. I'm with Sean. You got Buescher for a top 10 at plus money, take it. If you could get Joey Hand at a top 10 at, say, plus 300, 3-1, I'd be all over that, Sean. So
his background is similar to SVG's. They both ran in sports cars.
Right.
And you know, the main difference that really makes me like Hand is Hand has a little bit more Cup experience compared to SVG. He's ran this race before for Rick Ware, and he's ran other road course races for Rick Ware Racing. So this is even better equipment since he's in an RFK-based car, though. So
look, I'm excited to see it because RFK has been contending. They have shown the speed to contend everywhere. We know Buescher can run well at these road courses. Brad struggles a little bit, but Buescher has done well this year. So let's see it. Hey, thank you for tuning in. This is a little bit of a truncated, or I don't even know if that's the correct word to use.
Truncated.
It's a shortened version of
truncated.
Truncated. Thank you. Shortened version of our typical hour and a half long podcast. But I've got to run. I've got to take care of some things. It is a 4th. We want to wish everybody happy 4th of July. Please check out fantasyguru.com. I promise you there's a subscription option for you. If you're not sure what to do, reach out to support@fantasyguru.com. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them what you're trying to find, the data you want. They will recommend the best package and the best deal for you. I promise you there's an option for everybody. Sean's going to have you covered on all the Cup stuff this weekend. He's been pretty spot on. I mean, last weekend, the cautions at the end kind of threw a wrinkle in the mix, but Sean has been on point.
I do want to say this, though. We ended up hitting about 8 different bets on Discord for the Cup Series this past weekend. So if you're not into the Discord where you can get some of those exclusive bets that I throw out there on race day, you may want to get in for that because we've been hitting almost every week.
And I've been a little slack the last couple of weeks because I haven't really been feeling much, Sean. But, you know, when I throw some up there, that it's, you know, ask OGB Snacks. He loves the midweek stuff, and he loves seeing some of those bets there on Discord. Got to be on Discord. Highly recommend it. Hey, on behalf of Sean and myself, this is the Race Guru Thunder Hour, brought to you by fantasyguru.com and the Elite Plus Network. Please head over there, check it all out. Until next time, peace.